This video is brought to you by ASRock and the all-new Z590 Phantom Gaming ITX Thunderbolt 4. This motherboard supports 10th and 11th generation Intel Core processors, DDR4 2666, and it's PCI Express 4 through and through. Tons of USB connectivity, and you've got a 7.1 channel HD Nahimic audio codec. 7.1 channels right at the rear I/O. Look for that in an ITX motherboard, it's pretty rare. A killer E3100G 2.5 gig LAN NIC, an Intel Gigabit LAN NIC, and of course, killer AX 1675X 802.11ax Wi-Fi plus Bluetooth 5.2. Yes, 802.11ax. Even though this is ITX, it's built with premium 90 amp power chokes, which will give you more than adequate power for 5.3 gigahertz on Intel's latest and greatest. This board's got a number of other cool features like the resizable, base address register support for your GPUs, full access to the memory stuff for your GPUs, polychrome RGB if you're into the RGB thing, killer double shot pro software for being able to use all of your NICs at the same time for optimal performance, and don't forget that PCI Express 4 M.2 for the latest and greatest M.2 storage. If you're building with Intel for your next build, be sure to check out the ASRock Z590 Phantom Gaming ITX Thunderbolt 4 for your next build. It's a no compromises ITX option. Windows 11, it's your operating system. It's the thing that you use on your computer to actually get stuff done. What all has changed under the hood? Are there any sweeping user interface improvements? Is this going to be a huge productivity leap? Or is it just going to be an incremental refinement? Well, the jury's still a little bit out on that. Under the hood, I'm curious about a lot of the changes. I just want to take a look at it. I want to know what's changed. We here at Level 1, we talk about 64-core Threadripper monster machines, dual socket Xeon machines. What has Windows 11 changed for those folks? What about laptops, power management, stuff like that? Are there a lot of changes under the hood there? Because, well, Windows 10 really kind of left a lot to be desired in terms of power management. What about applications, new operating system features, stuff for really high-end performance? Let's dive in. Alright, first up, Windows 11 does actually have a lot of changes under the hood for newer hardware, and that's one of the things that's got me really super excited about it. So it takes advantage of all of the new stuff that hardware designers have been doing. There's new processors coming from Intel, Alder Lake, which mix CPU types. So instead of having one CPU that has 4 or 6 or 8 or 12 or 16 or 18 cores that are all exactly the same, some of the cores are different. Some of the cores are optimized for low power, and some of the cores are optimized for performance. Well, in order to use that properly, you've got to take advantage of that in the operating system, because as we saw when AMD did it with their 2990WX, the cores were the same, but in terms of access to memory, they were a little different. Windows did not handle that well. And don't worry, we're going to revisit that too on Windows 11. But yes, there is actually a lot of changes under the hood, but it seems like it's going to work with Alder Lake. There's actually a lot that Microsoft has given away in the beta. If you know where to look in terms of Alder Lake features and performance and things like that, there's a lot to be excited about for those CPUs that are coming. But I don't want to give too much of that away. What about the biggest changes for everybody else? Well, the biggest changes under the hood are actually for mobile users. Yeah. Got a laptop? Something like this, relatively contemporary. Windows 11 does seem to actually be a lot better about squeezing as much performance as possible out of mobile devices. It seems to do a better job running performance counters, preventing the CPU from throttling prematurely. There's actually a lot of features for laptop users. IE Edge, or just Edge now, I guess, has a lot of features to try to squeeze as much performance and battery power out of web pages while still giving you a pretty good experience. So, if you visit a web page and it's got lots of ad tracking scripts and crap running in the background, it can actually negatively impact your battery life. I noticed that, messing around with Windows 11 on a laptop, that the general sort of background hum of power consumption on Windows 11 was very much improved over Windows 10 when using the Edge browser. Now, if you're using Firefox or Chrome, the performance is not there, but I have a feeling that Microsoft is going to set a pretty good benchmark for power utilization. They also provided some updated user interface for power management and seeing how the applications work and interact with one another, so that's really good. So at the low end, And for laptop users, there are a lot of big beneficial changes in how the Windows scheduler works and how everything else works. So that got me really excited for like the medium and the high end. See it, you know, with CPUs like Ryzen, we have these preferred cores and they can boost a little bit higher. Intel has their, you know, Turbo Boost Max with velocity boost, and those are things that were available on Windows 10 to be sure. But, you know, when AMD debuted their preferred cores, it was a little tricky to actually take advantage of that in Windows. And very recently there was, you know, power profile shenanigans where you actually don't want it in the max performance power profile, you actually want it in the balanced performance profile to get the most performance out of it so that it can burst as needed. That actually shows up pretty well in the benchmarks. Well, taking Windows 11 under the hood, doing the testing, it's a little bit improved in Windows 11. I can get a little bit better scores in things like CPU-Z, and some of the other benchmarks because it's getting a little bit better in terms of the bursty workloads. For gaming, not much of a change though, a little bit of a regression. This is a pre-release version, so I'm not going to share exact numbers. I'm sure that on launch day that there's going to be plenty of game benchmarks and everything else because, you know, that's just the low-hanging fruit. But I don't think that Windows 11 is going to be anything revolutionary or even anything amazing for gamers. I think that some work has been done on Windows 11 to make sure that there's not any serious regressions, but you can tell they didn't put nearly as much work into the regular desktop user experience as they did the laptop users. Now, what about high-end Threadripper 64-core? You might be wondering how Microsoft is doing with Threadripper and monster 64-core machines. That machine behind me, that is our WRX80 Asus Sage with the 3995WX 64-core monster processor. You might recall from our video on these monster CPUs that Windows struggled just a bit. And not just Windows, applications too, because they'll just follow Microsoft's lead. If you look at programs that should be highly parallelizable, things like the Adobe Suite, Premiere, After Effects, they really struggled with the processor groups functionality in Windows 10. What's a processor group? Well, it's sort of a kludge that Microsoft baked into Windows to deal with processors that have a lot of actual cores on them. You see, normally you would have non-uniform memory access, which means you're in a situation like this. This is part of an old saying, but there's two CPU sockets here and two groups of memory. And so the operating system sees the combined cores on both of these sockets. So the operating system really kind of needs to be aware that, hey, programs that are in this memory should probably be scheduled for this processor, and programs that are in the memory over here should be scheduled for this processor. Because this processor getting stuff from this bank of memory is going to be relatively pretty slow. It's possible to waste a phenomenal amount of time shuffling programs between memory that is local to one group of processors versus another. Unfortunately, a lot of program designers, and this is really true of the Adobe Suite, made certain assumptions that, hey, if there are multiple processor groups, there are probably also multiple groups of memory. This is also related to the problem on Windows with the Threadripper 2990WX. You see, there were 4 chiplets on that CPU and 4 processor groups. 2 of them had direct access to memory, 2 of them didn't. But because of the innovative architecture of AMD's Infinity Fabric, the processors that technically didn't have access to local memory really didn't suffer nearly as much penalty as going cross-socket. So operating system designers assume that the penalty is really, really terrible going from socket to socket, so they'll do everything that they can to avoid that. And in a situation like with the Threadripper 2990WX, Microsoft just never fixed that because the operating system was actually incorrect in those assumptions. So fast forward to Windows 11, what changes can we expect there? Basically nothing. They fixed the Windows Task Manager to correctly report just processor groups and not NUMA nodes. That was probably a bug in Task Manager itself, but it seems like application developers have been left to fend for this one on their own. Now, under the hood, in terms of API access and operating system low levels, there's actually a fair bit of changes as far as I can tell. It does seem like the Windows scheduler is a little bit smarter about dealing with moving applications around and juggling multiple threads, but I really don't think anything has been done under the hood in Windows 11 to address 64-core monster CPUs. It's pretty much going to be up to the application developers like Adobe to deal with that. And that's really frustrating to report. Let me tell you, I really hope that changes. I really hope that I'm wrong about that. But it seems like the impetus here is to slice the workload into smaller and smaller pieces that can work on 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 cores, and not to have the operating system manage these monster jobs across 64 cores. It's an architectural decision, and that's just what I see from the cheap seats. So if I had to put a positive spin on that, I would say that with 32 and 64 core Threadrippers, there's no real performance regression. There is a possibility for performance improvement, but to close the loop on the performance improvement, it's going to require application developers to give us a little bit of love to better support those high core count CPUs. Now, to be sure, 32 core, 64 threads, it's totally fine. And you can also shortcut Windows a little bit here. You can disable hyperthreading or, symmetric multi-threading. And still end up in a pretty good spot because you have 64 cores and 64 threads, and that'll work fine in a single processor group. So if you have a particularly terrible application that hasn't been updated and you want to turn off your extra threads, you can do that, but that shouldn't still be a thing that fixes things in Windows 11. I mean, come on. If Microsoft changed the memory allocator in order to better be compatible with SimCity for DOS, I feel like that for known problematic applications, you can have a checkbox when you launch the application to say, hey, give this process 64 real cores. Don't give it the symmetric multi-thread cores, because it doesn't deal well with processor groups. And that would be a pretty good kludge. Maybe something like Process Lasso can implement that. Perhaps it was my bad, but I was really expecting Windows 11 to have a lot of new cool stuff to do with storage. This is an Intel P4511 110mm M.2. This is a data center M.2, but high performance. Not high performance compared to modern PCI Express 4 NVMe's. What about something like this? This is one of the add-in, 4-way NVMe RAID cards. This is actually something that's coming with a lot of, mid and upper mid-range and high-end desktops where you can run, a RAID 0 or a RAID 10 array of these in both Intel and AMD workstations. Even Apple is getting in on this. Their workstations, have that T2 chip, and they'll run RAID 0 of SSDs. Some of their other machines have the RAID 0 of SSDs. It's not an uncommon thing to see that for performance, especially for enthusiast stuff. So has anything changed under the hood in Windows 11 for better SSD performance, or a cache tier? What about things like Optane? Does Windows support a fast tier and a slow tier? I mean, the whole fast tier, slow tier, we can do that in Linux. So maybe Microsoft is adding something in Windows 11 because they see what's happening with Apple and the marketplace. We also have SSDs like the Inmodus SSD, the Fuse drive, the 1.6 terabyte, which has a fixed SLC region, which is nice and fast on a single device. The H20 from Intel, which Intel does have rapid storage, and I did test that, and that works fine on Windows 11. So you can get, anything that is officially Intel sanctioned, that works okay. But did they do anything with Windows 11 storage for enthusiasts? The answer is no. Windows 11, as far as I can tell, is completely unchanged for performance. And running RAID 0 or RAID 1, it still has, the built-in disk management features for that, but there isn't anything there that works especially well. If anything, we've had a little bit of a regression, because Windows 11 requires TPM 2.0 for security. This is a hardware platform security, and I probably should have got into that before now, but TPM 2.0, in a perfect world, would prevent malware from being deployable on a Windows machine, because the malware wouldn't be able to, execute in a fully trusted kind of a way. See, we can use cryptographic certificates to sign executables, and it will prevent any unsigned application from being able to run. In reality, the past year has shown that this is a pipe dream. TPM 2.0 is not going to do that. See, we had signed print drivers, like from HP and others, where if you had that print driver installed on your machine, it could be compromised by a bad actor. And that print driver is signed, and that print driver is not malicious. So what's Microsoft going to do? Going to revoke a print driver? Well, that's going to break a lot of people that actually have the printer for printing, but a bad guy can always install that printer driver, even if you don't have the printer, and then use that as a backdoor to get into your system. Razer, with their mice, they experienced that. They're working on fixing that, because that one's even worse, because that driver actually comes from Microsoft. So not only was it bundled with the operating system on the printer side of it, but for the Razer version, you could actually get the computer to download and install the drivers from the internet, even if you didn't have the mouse. You just had to create a situation where the computer thought that you had the mouse, and then with that driver installed, you can take over the machine even if you don't have admin access, because you need to be an admin to install the drivers. So Microsoft lets itself install the drivers, but what if the driver itself isn't secure? It's a pretty sticky situation. TPM 2.0 is not going to help you with that situation at all. Not even a little bit. So this is not going to help end user security much the way that it's implemented now. Maybe a little bit, not a lot. Some of my test systems, we've got like 4 of them, but the main one, the one that I spent the most time with, was a Ryzen 5800X. And yes, I did have to enable FTPM in the BIOS in order for Windows 11 to say, oh yeah, that's compatible with that hardware, that's totally fine. Microsoft's getting rid of support for a lot of older hardware, remember? And it's not just about TPM, it's supposed to be about other stuff. So I was expecting more of a performance uplift on modern hardware. To be sure, I am seeing it on mobile devices and laptops, but cutting edge desktop, it's about the same. So far, anyway. Now, the elephant in the room is gaming performance. Why is he talking about gaming performance on Windows 11? Well, it's not there yet. I have in my hand the pinnacle of Team Red performance, the OC Formula 6900 XT from ASRock. We did a full review, breakdown, Linux videos, you name it. This thing is a monster card. At 1080p and 1440p, there are some performance regressions moving from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Similarly, Team Green. This is the MSI Supreme 3090. I also put it through its paces just to see what would happen on Windows 11, and like Team Red, it was more affected at lower resolutions, but at higher resolutions it was less affected. If you have a mid-tier graphics card, however, something in the 2000 series, or something less high-end than, a 68, 6900 or a 3070, 3080, 3090, well, more on the 3080, 3090 side, I think you'll see less of a performance regression. So my prediction is that when Windows 11 launches, a lot of gamers are going to freak out because the performance is not there. It seems like a lot of the other people that are looking at gaming performance in Windows 11 are saying, well, this is pre-release, they'll probably fix that. But the reality is that that's probably going to get the most attention between now and launch. What that actually means for performance junkies and enthusiasts that are running higher end systems like Xeon Workstation parts, Threadripper Pro, is that it's going to be second class citizen experience for people with those processors, which is sort of odd, but I just think that there's so much other stuff that really needs urgent attention. There can't possibly be enough time to deal with performance regressions on those other platforms. Now maybe we'll get lucky and the performance regressions to fix desktop class processors will also fix the higher end processors. But with Alder Lake also launching, I really doubt that's going to happen. The best thing that we can hope for is that the engineers know this and that they've laid groundwork for better performance in the future, because I get the feeling that fixing some of these internal issues with the Windows 10 kernel and the scheduler and everything around task management is problematic. And with the new changes in architecture and the problems that those engineers have experienced, hopefully with Windows 11 they've left themselves some outs so that we can at least get that fixed over the next year or two. Here's hoping. Okay, well, what about the desktop experience? Let's sit down and see if Microsoft's got any really new, exciting user interface paradigm stuff. So I'm going to get to the really technical, nitty-gritty eventually, obviously, first. But, hey, Windows 11, it's a totally new user interface. What's this icon do? Okay, it's this sidebar. I've got the weather, money market, NFL, stories. Some people are into this. I'm going to hit the ... here and customize this? How do I customize this? Can I hit the ... here about this data? No. What do I do? Manage interests. Okay. Okay, it gives me this web-based dashboard. This isn't that insidious in and of itself. GNOME on Linux, it lets you manage extensions through the web, and that makes it a little easier because you're not really downloading anything. I'm a little surprised this isn't the Microsoft Store. It's news, entertainment, sports, money. Okay, but what if I want to customize this with other stuff like maybe I want to know temperatures of my system, or have reminders, or some kind of a plugin for Outlook or whatever. That may be coming, but I don't really see that here. This seems like it's designed to give me consumption. And now if I click up here, I can see that I'm signed in to my Microsoft account, because you have to be in order to get your Windows 11 thing. But check this out. If I go up here and I do privacy dashboard, alright, so when I click that, it takes me here and it says sign in with Microsoft. This is different than when I went here, which is letting me do stuff and manipulate the sidebar. So this is what we in the business call an anti-pattern. This is designed for you not to mess with your privacy settings, because it has extra friction. You have to log in, you have to do stuff, and it's like, oh, but that's good. And you would think so, but this doesn't require you to log in. This knew who I was, but this one doesn't. Why is that? I was designed this way. There's no excuse for a $1 trillion company to get user interface this wrong, unless they don't want you to mess with your privacy settings or see what it is, because a lot of people will be like, I don't really feel like signing in right now. It's an extra set of steps. It's nice to see that the Windows Start menu is still just god-awful. Alright, I click Start. Maybe I want to play Gears Tactics. See, I've got Gears Tactics installed on my desktop. Type here to search, Gears Tactics. And it found a PNG file. Oh, and here's some web results. Loading some ads. There's an ad. GameStop, Amazon. Somebody paid for this placement. This is probably the dumbest thing that they just will not let go of. This shows you that the operating system is not for the users. It is just for whatever marketing can come up with and be like, yeah, this is a really good thing. If I click apps, search for apps in the Microsoft Store. It's right there. Alright, what about Edge? Microsoft recommended browser. Oh, I can open it. Oh, I don't get a web search on this. I can go to search the web down here. But, yeah. Alright, let's say I want to disable search on the web. I click here. Oh, search settings. That seems like that might do it. Safe search. Windows search web previews will not automatically load web results if they contain adult content. Strict, moderate, and off. Why is there no I don't want web results there? Why is it not there? Again, it's an anti-pattern. You are the product. This is a very, very deliberately designed operating system, and it's really getting me worked up because it is not designed to be as good as possible for the user. And this is what is going to be Microsoft's downfall, because they're not designing people-oriented products. And so it pains me, but Apple is going to continue to run circles around them in that regard. Not that Apple isn't a horribly exploitive company either, but Microsoft really could just not be hideously evil here and just let people turn stuff off that they would like to turn off. But that's asking too much. Now there is a way to turn it off, but not from this screen, because again, it's an anti-pattern. It's deliberately designed to be the most obtrusive thing possible. So frustrating. Because otherwise, the UI does actually feel a little bit more responsive than Windows 10. Like aesthetically, I could see this is, kind of makes sense. Everything is a little bit more spaced out. That's obviously to, help with a touch type interface. Of course, it makes your screen feel smaller. I'm running a 4K resolution on 32 inch, so everything is really super tiny. But, because everything is scaled up a little bit, it's a constant battle. It's like I need more and more pixels. So I can set it to 100%, and that's still pretty good. But now the fonts are also a little smaller owing to having more white space around things. So it's kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't. I guess we'll live with 150% for now. The icons are reworked in the aesthetics. Let's see if, let's see what options we have. Primary mouse button, mouse pointer speed, scroll, additional mouse settings. Yeah, see, this is just laziness. As much work as they put into the start menu selling you ads so that they can sell ad space on the start menu when you search for things, this is just lazy. This interface hasn't changed in like the past 17 versions of Windows. They really didn't do anything here. This is literally exactly the same. This is a kind of schizophrenia in the Windows UI interface thing where it's like, we don't really need to rework that. It's probably fine. But it ends up being sort of mixed messages in terms of UI. And sometimes they'll actually turn this interface off and make it a worse experience. So like network connections is very famously this way. Like this network connections, which appears relatively unchanged. Yeah, this is like the aliasing here isn't even correct. Like they couldn't bother to update whatever it is that makes the text quality here not look completely awful. Now this might change before launch, but I kind of doubt it because this has been a problem since the beginning. Well, it's not really a problem because I don't actually want them to get rid of this because you can do stuff from here that you can't do from elsewhere. So like if we do, you know, if we go down here to our network connections, it's never going to take us there. It's like if I do here, there's wireless networks. Oh, you'll have to blur that out. I'm sorry. Alright, so like this is just broken because it wants me to pick a Wi-Fi network because this computer has wired and Wi-Fi, but it's actually on the wired connection. Okay, Ethernet connected. And then there's like, okay, Wi-Fi is on and it can see stuff. But let's do this. Public, meter connection. Alright, the DNS server assignment. Oh, finally, they've got a way to edit your DNS. You can do it manually. See, in the Windows 10 UI, this was broken. It was DHCP on or off. You couldn't override your DNS, just your DNS. You had to go through the other thing. So this is a little bit more functional than it used to be. So there's a new right-click menu when you right-click the desktop, but they've kind of painted themselves into a corner because some things actually want to put options there. So rather than support that in this menu, again, they took the lazy way out, just like they did with the mouse interface. Show more options, and you get the old menu. This kind of thing adds a lot of cruft under the hood and generally leads to not a great user experience. It's like the guy that did the experiments on the pigeons, where the pigeons, you know, learned random behavior to get food because they were fed at random times. Like he would teach the pigeons tricks and then feed them, and then he switched to just feeding them at random times. So the pigeons developed these really elaborate rituals that they thought that they had to do in order to get fed. It's kind of like the user interface version of that. Alright, I've opened a bunch of Chrome windows. It still does the Windows 10 behavior where if you've got a lot of these, it'll give you the stack, but if you don't have a lot, it'll give you the horizontal row, which is pretty good, I guess. Pretty good way to deal with that. Although I'm kind of surprised they didn't come up with a better way to deal with that. Select the far corner of the taskbar to show the desktop. Oh wow, when you've got a lot of Chrome windows open, it really... the interface becomes a lot less responsive. Look at that. That's just... ugh. Hopefully they fix that. Alright, I would like power toys. It's weird they don't have power toys in the Windows store. Terminal, might as well go ahead and get terminal. We have terminal already installed. Windows terminal, look, it comes with terminal. I can open command prompt. Windows terminal, open. Run as administrator. Yeah, that's broken. Windows terminal. Free. Apparently I don't have a working version of it. It's fun, you can do Windows terminal, but you can't get power toys. Fancy zones is what I want to show you. I mean, honestly, this should be a DevOps thing. So, like, when there is a release on GitHub, completely in an automatic way, build the thing for the Windows Store and publish it on the Windows Store. That should not even require human intervention. Like, that's DevOps, right? That's what you're supposed to do with DevOps. DevSecOps. Yeah. Alright. So, you know how you can, you know, do window left and window right? So like window left, window right. Oh, that's cool. It's got a little different animation in Windows 11. But this is something you can do in Windows 10. And that's all fine. And then it does that. Alright, so what Fancy Zones is you can hold shift now and then actually pick a layout. So it's kind of like i3 on Linux, but with a little bit more training wheels. So, and it'll automatically... Wasn't that really cool? So it's automatically arranged my windows. I mentioned this in the WinGet video. I was hoping that you would discover it, but you know, some people didn't. You can also do Win Shift quote and bring this up and then like mess with your layouts. So if you have a bunch of custom layouts that you want to do, you can totally do that. You can also do the focus layout so that it'll arrange windows like that if you like, you know, tiling windows or whatever. Not tiling windows, but cascading windows. The old school. Way back a long time ago, you could right click on this and go to cascade windows. But they changed that and took it out and broke it, and now it doesn't work and all that kind of stuff. Alright. So, shift, and it's like, oh, what if I want actually, you know, oh, I can do two. You can hold control. And so now it does that. So it's like, oh, we can do that. So you can get pretty creative with Fancy Zones. That's on a Windows 11 thing, though. You can do that on Windows 10 now with Power Toys. Just go install Power Toys. You know, that's just, Microsoft doesn't want anybody to know about the cool stuff because they didn't put it in the Windows Store. They only put the cool stuff in the Windows Store. It's just so dumb. If you have the Windows subsystem for Linux installed, that'll also show up here, and you can get a Linux command prompt. So you can have a Windows command prompt and a Linux command prompt and SSH and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Actually, let's leave that open. Window D still reveals the desktop, but we got this. This is not really a lot of windows open, and it's really kind of struggling a little bit. This is with the Radeon RX 6700. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I want to know what the Windows shortcuts are. You know, like a help thing. This is worthless. Like, you might as well just not do anything because that is so worthless. F1 for help. How to get help in Windows 10. Enter a question or keywords in the search box on the taskbar. Yeah, I wanted shortcuts to the movie. That's right, Microsoft. Again, they put so much work into... Oh, and now that's broken. Oh, there it goes. They put so much work into this. Oh, add widgets. Family safety, to do, esports, Outlook calendar. To do. Now this is interesting because this is... Was that there? Was add widgets there before? Did I just miss it? Some people are into this. I'm gonna hit the ... here. ... here. ... here. No, this is different. This changed because there was ... in the corner here. What is going on? It's that schizophrenic user interface. Microsoft is literally designing interfaces that gaslight you. It's like, am I misremembering? Am I losing my mind? This looks different. It looks like a different design. What's going on? This is stuff here. My other favorite thing about this is that whenever you actually do customize this and like you have different preferences and stuff, Microsoft will absolutely not remember anything, or it'll be like half remembered. So when they get a brand new widget, you're gonna get the brand new widget, and it's gonna mess with your stuff. And there's not an easy way to revert it or be like, it's like, hey, I've got a new thing. Would you like to keep this, or do you want to go back to your old layout? That would be a good user interface. But they don't care about a good user interface. They care about selling clicks through to the New York Daily News or CNBC or whatever. Because again, the user. Just look for these things and you will be like surprised. If you learn to look for the anti-patterns that companies foist upon you, then you too will have the same anger issues that I have when you look at things like that, because it's not designed for the user. It's designed to make the company money. And I don't really have a problem with it being designed to make the company money. It just seems like the company's dishonest about it, because the architecture here is not to provide the user with a good experience and to help them be more efficient. That's a secondary concern. The primary concern is the vision of whatever this is. This is not actually useful. This is a distraction. Let's see what Microsoft considers essential apps in the Microsoft Store preview. Netflix, Spotify, Pinterest, Drawboard, OneNote, Sketchable, Facebook. Doesn't even say Facebook because Facebook is such a negative connotation. Yeah, there's not, Alright, is there like utilities? Let's see if we can find utilities. Is there utilities category? And apps? HP desktop support utilities, really? PDF flow utilities, PDF utilities scan. Yeah, this is really specials, best selling apps, best photo video, best productivity, creativity, collections. All right, let's search for so productivity is a thing. Let's search for productivity apps. This is only finding apps that have productivity in the name. It doesn't, it's like, did they even do a focus group on this? Filters, apps. No one would ever want to search for an app in a category. They just want to know if it's free or paid or on sale. And now, again, I experience the gaslighting user interface because I have top free apps, top trending apps on home. I've gone home and I can do collections. If I go to apps, here we go. Best productivity apps. Okay, I want to see all productivity apps. This is it. Well, I guess if you've only got this few of applications, then having a category wouldn't make sense because there's only, the 25 applications here or so in the whole world. So maybe it's okay. I don't even have the Android thing. The Android app thing. Search for Android mirror to PC. 1 star. This isn't even the one. Right? Because this is not from... Yeah, this is from Meeting Solutions. This is the one from Microsoft. What's the one from Microsoft called? Let's go Bing that and see what... No, let's not Bing that. Let's see. Microsoft Android. I'm searching in caps. Microsoft Office mobile app for Android? No, that's not what we want. Companion. What was that called? Your phone app. Alright. Your phone app. Hey! Look at that. I only had to search for the exact thing, and it is already installed, although it's an older version. Let's say Android. Continue. On your Android, go to aka.ms/yourpc. And then, okay. So we could, that's a thing. That's a possibility. But it's funny that if we go to apps and we go to best productivity apps, oops, if I do Control F, it's gonna do stuff. Oh, your phone, look at that. It is. It's on the second row. Well, that's good. See all collections. Apps to start your day. Essential apps, digital pen apps, weather apps. Movie apps, best productivity apps, apps for learning remotely. Windows themes. Yeah. At least the terminals are reasonably graphically accelerated. I mean, it probably could be faster, but it's faster than it was. The networking was also oddly broken. Whenever I launched any program, it would limit the gigabit connection to 100 megabit, presumably so the media wouldn't skip if I was trying to play it from a network drive, but actually the user interface was just laggy and unresponsive. That'll probably be fixed by launch though, because that's pretty egregious. All right, so that's been a quick look at Windows 11. Kind of disappointing. I mean, it's a new veneer, and there is some stuff there to really help laptop users, so that's good. But performance junkies and people that are looking to, you know, do cool new stuff with their machine, there's not really a lot there. Maybe I should be disappointed. Maybe I shouldn't have expected that to begin with. I mean, even Windows Vista, when it launched, if you had a really fast, you know, USB drive, you could actually use that to help accelerate Windows Vista. Like, they put a lot of stuff in there that was just cool new features. And there's not a lot of cool new features in Windows 11 that I can tell. You can get Power Toys, but you can get Power Toys on Windows 10. And honestly, the Power Toys productivity improvement is bigger than what I'm seeing that Windows 11 is offering. And if anything, there's certain things that get in the way, because I don't want web search on the start menu. No one has. You know, Microsoft's added that. Most people complain about it. There is a way to turn it off. A lot of people that will bother will turn it off. But it seems a little tone deaf, because, hey, we tried the Windows web results in the start menu. Most people don't like that. I'm sure that Microsoft has the analytics to see how many people actually use that. And it's probably a very, very, very low number of people that actually use that. And the people that actually do use that are probably confused. So how do you filter that out of your analytics? But some of the stuff not being able to customize it easily. You know, there were early reports of Windows 11, the start menu actually breaking because Microsoft was trying to inject some of the stuff in the start menu to advertise their other products. Yeah, I just, you know, it doesn't seem like the state of the art of the program will ever improve until the competition becomes such that it has to improve. And I really thought that seeing what Apple was doing with some of their stuff in their operating system, to be sure, I don't think that Apple is particularly innovative under the hood, but they at least are making things easier for non-computer literate users. And Microsoft has done some of that with the laptop and touch-oriented stuff in Windows 11. But pretty much everybody else, I think, has been left out in the cold with this update. I'm really surprised that the Windows kernel hasn't been more updated. I mean, they updated a lot, so I should probably be happy with that. And it looks like they've updated it a lot for Alder Lake, but I don't know. It just seems like not enough. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1. It's just some random thoughts on Windows 10. If you like this kind of stuff, you know, hang out, chat, whatever. I'm going to go hang out in Level 1 forums. I'm signing out, and I'll see you there.